Hi, I'm Carlo Cicchetto here with State Assemblyman for the 78th District, Todd Gloria, running for Mayor of San Diego. We're going to get right into it, as we have been. We're facing a significant housing crisis in California and in San Diego, of course. There aren't enough homes available, and the ones that are here are too expensive. People are moving out, and people are going homeless. How do you want to solve this problem?
Well, I appreciate you correctly identifying this as the biggest issue in this city, from homelessness to people simply not being able to afford the rent or ever foresee being able to buy a home in San Diego. It is unquestionably the biggest problem and what the next mayor has to tackle head on. What I've said is that we have to get a lot better at producing more housing generally, but housing particularly for low income and middle income San Diegans. So low income, we're talking about the homeless and formerly homeless. We need strong mayoral leadership, and cities across this nation are ending chronic homelessness. Unfortunately, San Diego is not among those communities, but we can be with strong mayoral leadership. With data-driven decision-making, we have to hold those who receive public money accountable for the funds that they get and prove that they're getting people off the streets and keeping them off the streets. If they can do that, they should get more money. If they can't, they should get less or they should get none. We have to build more housing, period. We have to partner with the county. The city has a housing commission. The county has a behavioral health and human services agency. When you marry housing with services, that's how you end homelessness. And Carlo, it's important that we enlarge this conversation. It's not sufficient to end this problem in the city of San Diego. All 18 cities in our county in the unincorporated areas must be working off the same sheet of music, if you will. And the mayor of San Diego has the biggest bully pulpit in the region. And I want to use that bully pulpit to bring everyone together so that we don't just solve this issue in the city of San Diego, but we do it in Chula Vista, in Escondido, in Oceanside, in other places where we know there are thousands of people who are unsheltered. Moving attention to the working and middle class, I'm a native San Diegan. I'm a third generation San Diegan. My mom and dad were a maid and a gardener. They were able to work hard and buy a home in this community, put their 2 kids through college, the first in our family to ever go. I think most of your viewers would find that story impossible in 2020. Yeah. And the next mayor of San Diego has to say that's not acceptable and we should work to change that. I'm a renter myself. I grew up here. I went to college here. The taxpayers of this community help subsidize my education. And yet even I, with the good salary that I make, can't afford to buy a home. So I get it. I understand. And as mayor, I'll be laser focused on making sure that we are updating our community plans. These are the governing documents that guide where development should go. I don't believe in building anything anywhere. Building a bunch of housing out in the backcountry where we know there are fire-prone areas makes no sense. Building high skyscrapers in our coastal communities, that's the most expensive kind of housing. What we need are housing that working people can afford. What I often hear complaints about is that I earn not enough to afford market rate housing, but I earn too much to qualify for any of the programs that are out there. We should use some of the strategies that have effectively built thousands of homes for low-income San Diegans and use those same strategies for middle-income San Diegans, because ultimately I want to make sure that kids like me who grew up in this community see a future for themselves here, can see buying a home here, raising a family, building wealth. If we can do that, then you can have a great city. You can't have a great city if people have their eye on the door thinking, I can only stay here so much longer until I have to move away. And again, the mayor, as the city manager of the city, we have strong mayor form of government, we will oversee, or the mayor oversees the Development Services Department, has the executive ability to make sure that we're issuing permits in a timely fashion, cutting through red tape, and making sure those savings are reflected in the rents and the for sale prices of the homes that are being built.
Sounds like you've thought about this a little bit.
I'm sorry, I'm really passionate about this subject, and it's part of why I'm running. This is a hard issue. If you don't bring passion to it, we're not going to solve it. I want to bring a lot of passion to the issue of solving chronic homelessness and building more housing for working San Diegans.
This next question is something you've experienced as a city council member here in San Diego. Mayor Ken Faulconer's big infrastructure initiative has been road repair. They've talked a lot about it, thousands of miles repaired. What do you think the biggest issue is for infrastructure in the city of San Diego, and how are you going to attack that?
Well, from my standpoint, I love the question because people often try to tell me infrastructure is not a sexy subject and therefore we don't talk about it enough. Disagree. I think it's a very sexy subject and we got to talk about it more, because if we do, we elevate its priority, get more focus on more attention, more progress. I think roads need to be repaired, and obviously that is probably the most intimate way that San Diegans interact with their city government. And Lord knows the roads are not in the condition they need to be in. But I think of it a bit broader than that. We have to build a world-class transportation system to match the world-class city that we are and that we should continue to grow into being. What do I mean by that? When you travel the world and you travel to many of our peer cities, you see vibrant active transportation options, good quality public transportation that people choose to ride instead of being default into riding because they have no other option. Right now, I think San Diegans really only have one choice in getting from A to B, and that's in their car. And what I would like to foresee is an opportunity for really a freedom of choice, that you can match the mode of transportation to the trip you're going to take, so that you have a safe and convenient way to walk to where you need to go if that's appropriate, that you can take public transit that's quality, affordable, and efficient for working San Diegans, that you continue to drive your car when it's appropriate, and hopefully in a situation where there's not so much traffic that makes it nearly impractical. How can we do this? Well, we passed a bill in the legislature, Assembly Bill 805 by Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, a couple of years ago. It reformed our local regional transportation authority, SANDAG, and its governance structure, and it puts the mayor of San Diego in charge of that agency. Now, our current mayor doesn't use that authority, and that's a bit baffling to me because that's $1 billion of annual spending. As mayor of San Diego, I would absolutely use that authority. I would help to lead SANDAG to make sure the city of San Diego gets its fair share, and that we're building that world-class transportation system that's really a hallmark of choice, of freedom of choice. And lastly, Carlo, this really gets into the climate change question. As you may know, over 40% of the emissions into the community come from transportation. If we're not building this network that I'm describing to you, we can't meet our obligations under our landmark climate action plan, nor our obligations under state and in some cases federal law. So this is a climate imperative as well as an infrastructure imperative.
It makes sense that you put those two things together, transportation and climate change, so much so. And it's funny because you lead right into our third question, which is climate change is on top of everybody's mind. What are we not doing enough in San Diego to address it? And it sounds like you would just build out on transportation. We're not doing enough there. It's a big impact. Are there other areas where we can improve?
There's lots of areas, and actually it takes the first and second question. You have housing policy, you have transportation policy. The overlap between those two is climate policy. Mm-hmm. Now, your viewers may remember I actually served in the mayor's office. I did it for about 8 months in 2013 and 2014 after the resignation of Mayor Bob Filner. During that time, besides pulling the government back together and getting us back on track, I had to do the day-to-day duties of the city's chief executive, and one of the things I did was author our city's landmark climate action plan. This is a bold, audacious plan. People somewhat criticized it back 5 years ago as maybe being too bold, but fast forward to today, a lot of cities in the San Diego area have adopted the same plan. The state of California has adopted the same plan. 6 other states and Puerto Rico have followed our lead. What I'm trying to say is what seemed unthinkable just a few years ago is now being replicated elsewhere. Shows you what happens when San Diego leads, and my campaign is very much about making sure San Diego leads more often. To your question, we have adopted that climate action plan of moving to 100% renewable energy by the year 2035, but I don't feel like the last 5 years, this current administration and city council have acted with the urgency that's necessary. Give you an example. We are slowly moving towards community choice energy, basically giving consumers a choice on where they get their energy from and hopefully purchasing it from more renewable sources. The city spent 5 years studying that when we knew full well that this is what the city needs to do. The next mayor is going to have the opportunity to build on actually ramping this up, of really bringing it online and bringing those renewable energy sources into San Diego, but also, Carlo, importantly, taking the proceeds that come from that enterprise and reinvesting them back into our neighborhoods to make sure that green policies and green living aren't just the opportunities for the wealthy who can afford a Tesla or to put solar on their house, but really that every community can benefit from that. So that you see electric charging stations south of the 8, that you see green jobs coming into other communities where maybe there isn't enough employment opportunities. This is what community choice energy can do. This is what city policy adopted 5 years ago is making possible. And with a bit more urgency, with a bit more bold leadership, I think we can maybe make that goal sooner than 2035, and then move on to other things that are important. And again, that really is about housing and transportation, the convergence of those issues to keep San Diego a leader in the fight against climate change. What sets us apart from many other communities is our natural resources, our beautiful climate. This is worth fighting for, and it isn't a zero-sum game. We can be good on the environment and good on the economy.
They are intertwined.
Yeah.
Mayor Kemp Faulconer has let's call it an interesting relationship with the White House, especially when it comes to issues related to immigration. Those are kind of tricky waters, being where we are and how interdependent we are with Mexico's economy. Yeah. How would you navigate those waters?
Well, I do not support President Trump. I think what he is doing is very detrimental, not just to our regional economy as one that is on the border and dependent on our binational mega region, but also eroding the morality of our community and harming families in San Diego. Many of our city's residents live by national lifestyles. They live on both sides on the border. They may live on one side, work on the other. Their children may go back across frequently. I think that the mayor has done a decent job of really illustrating the economic benefits of our border, but hasn't spoken out about really the policies that we're seeing out of Washington, D.C. from the Trump administration that, again, that are harming our community. The mayor of San Diego is the mayor of the largest border city in the United States. And again, that's a bully pulpit from which to speak. And we should be speaking about this, not just in economic terms, although that's really important, and really speaking about the fact that the border is an asset and not a liability, but also using this bully pulpit to make very, very clear that putting children in cages is not appropriate. That is absolutely wrong. That focusing on a border wall that we don't believe is going to be helpful is harmful, particularly when we're dealing with cross-border sewage, which is actually a much more direct threat to our community. And every nickel that's going to a wall that's not useful is money that could be going to make sure that we have clean water and open beaches here in San Diego County. So I see a lot of need for activism at this level to really speak out and speak the truth to an administration that is so wrong-headed on the border. And I think they're wrong-headed in not just for whatever reasons most people ascribe, but we know the border. You and I live here, where it's just down the road. You and I understand how this works. I don't think people in Washington understand that, and the mayor of San Diego has an obligation to make sure more people understand why the border is important, again, not just for our economy, but for the lives of thousands of San Diegans that live by national lifestyles.
Finally, Assemblymember Todd Gloria, we want to let everybody just have their elevator pitch. Give you a minute just to look at our voters, tell them why they should vote for you to be the next mayor of the city of San Diego.
Well, I have a chance to answer this question a lot, you might imagine.
I do.
So here's what I'll say. You know, I'm a native San Diego. I'm a third-generation San Diegan. That means that I know where our community has been. I'm the son of a hotel maid and a gardener, which means I know just how hard it is to make ends meet in this town. But more than anything, I have a vision for where I'd like to take our city. There are many challenges in our city. We've talked about some of them, potholes to housing affordability to homelessness. Broadly speaking, I think our city's main challenge is that we are a big city that too often operates like a small town. And we have to break from that mentality and embrace the fact that we're the 8th largest city in the country, the 2nd largest in California, and that we should take care of the small issues like scooters and vacation rentals and really tackle the big issues like homelessness, housing affordability, and infrastructure. Your viewers know that I can do this job. They saw me do it for 8 months under the most difficult of circumstances. I'm asking for the opportunity to do it for 8 years under more normal circumstances. And I think in doing so, we can be among the cities that end chronic homelessness. We can build a world-class transportation system. We can meet our obligations under our climate action plan. And most importantly, we can build more housing that is priced for working and middle-class families. Families like mine that have lived the dream here in San Diego, but whose story should not end with my generation of San Diegans. It's so important that we build pathways going forward so that my niece and nephews can have a place to live here in their hometown.
All right. Todd Gloria, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Carlo.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.